War does not determine who is right, only who is left. It's Amigos, episode 366. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Amigos. I'm John.
And I'm Aaron.
And today, Aaron, we're going to be talking about Lost
Oh,
Patrol.
man.
You know, Aaron, when it comes to the Vietnam War, there are so many images and so many scenes that come to mind. Depending on who you talk to, everybody thinks about something else. When it comes to when somebody brings up that conflict, is there a certain song or movie or picture that just pops into your head right away?
Well, I think of a few things. One of the images that always comes to mind is the military kicking those helicopters off of the aircraft carrier out in the ocean there, right off the coast, where they're getting
Hmm.
rid of those. When I think music of that era, you know, listen, it's a generic answer, but like "Paint It Black" is one that comes to my mind. And, because that song seems to have the right feel for the whole thing.
Hmm. Hmm.
My uncle was an MP in Vietnam. My dad was going to go, but unfortunately, Dad was unrecruitable with his various ailments. He had polio. He'd had an arrow shot in his eye. He had a bunch of weird problems, so they wouldn't take him. But my uncle did serve over there, and the Vietnam is one of those odd periods in history where it was very personal, and you're gonna
Hmm.
get different responses from when you ask the question of what was it like from 10 different people. They're gonna give you 10 different answers often, and it was something I hopefully I'd like to say we're never gonna repeat something like that. I don't know. I don't think we've ever repeated something like that per se, but uh, it's a tough one to cover. It's still a sensitive subject. It's certainly here in the States, there's still plenty of people roaming around that were there, and sons and daughters of people that were there that still take it seriously.
Yeah, yeah. Well said. Well, we can't really get too ridiculous with the banter this week because it's sort of a somber. This is a very somber game. So, what say we move right on in to the Amiga news of the week?
The less somber news, Boat.
Yes, the less somber news.
Amiga News.
All right, Aaron. Our first story this week is a new video that is about the Pandori,
Hmm.
the Amiga, the A500 Mini Pandori mod. This is you're sort of the expert when it comes to these things. Now I'm going to tell you what I think it is, and you can tell me why I'm wrong.
Sure.
This is a sort of an alternative firmware you can load onto your device that bypasses the original system selector and game selector and gives you access to not only Amiga emulation but other types of system emulation as well. Is that correct or incorrect?
Yeah, I mean you're right in the ballpark there, but it's effectively this is like a retro arch build that will work on your A500 Mini. I mean, it's as simple as that. The hardware inside the A500 Mini is pretty good, and it's good enough to where you can get up into the realm of the Dreamcast, and all points back. You should be good to go. Pandora is something I look around me here at the various items I have that will play all this stuff. Okay. And I often get mocked by amongst my peers for having MAME and stuff on a microwave or like on a bidet or whatever. I mean, you can play this
Hmm.
stuff anywhere that you want. And so I have not taken the step to install this on my A500. I mean, now listen, it's a simple installation, and once you do it, you've got access to all this stuff. It's that simple. Once you put your ROMs in there, whatnot, I'm sure if you nosed around, you could find a complete package somewhere, if you know what I mean, Bode. With all that said, they have recently upgraded Pandora. I mean, it's been around for a while, but with the BIOS or the firmware upgrade that was released by the people that make the F500 Mini, they effectively made it so people that upgraded their firmware couldn't use Pandora but that's been taken care of now, and so this will work with the new firmware. Now, with all that said, I've been told by people on the Discord not to update your firmware
Mm.
anyway, because there's a new gimmick coming out that's supposed to be even more insane and awesome than Pandora is. It's not ready yet, but it's due any day. So I still haven't updated my firmware in my A500 Mini. But when it comes to the A500 Mini, and we've talked about Amiga Mini, the Amiga workbench environment that I did a little video on a while back, and we've talked about Pandora. I mean, there's a lot of options and roads you can go down if you want to mod the Mini. Or if you don't want to bother with it and you're never going to mod it, I don't think there's any problem with you going ahead and updating your firmware and just using the thing stock. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're going to, if you've got one of these things and you really want to use it, I would probably hold off. But I mean, in terms of as a package, I think Pandora's very, very excellently done a bit of kit here. They've done a good job. I've talked to some of the guys that are involved in it. And I think it's dandy. So if that's your bag, go for it. But again, if you've got 50 different things to play this stuff on, you may not bother with it. I just play Amiga stuff on my Amiga Mini, but other people may play other stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I think that you're always going to get people that say, well, everything plays everything. You don't need to put this on here. But for some people, they say that you have cast your die in the world of the mini console slash computer.
Yeah.
And the one the one you're going to get is the A500. It's good to have the option, if this is the only thing sitting underneath your TV in your living room, to be able to play some other stuff if you want to. If you want to open it up for, console emulation or whatever. It's good to have the option. It's not for everybody, but I'm glad it's there.
I will say in closing on this, and this came to me like an epiphany, but I'm sure other people have thought about it. Once you hack any of these minis, they're pretty much all the same. I mean, really, they're all, once you hack them and you can play everything on them, then you can play everything on them. So it is sort of the great equalizer. And I will say, if you decide to put Pandora, for example, on your A500 Mini, I like the controller on the A500 Mini. I like the onboard keyboard support, which apparently sticks around through all this stuff. So there are reasons to do it. It's a nice like armchair experience. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah. Aaron, our next news story is this comes to us from the chat. Apparently, 10-minute Amiga Retrocast Doug he's out of the hospital and he's feeling better. So I wanted to get that in there before we move on. We've been thinking about Doug all week. We're glad that one of the pillars of the Amiga community is fit as a fiddle and is ready to hopefully get back in the editor's chair and make some more great Amiga videos.
Yeah, come on, stop ham and egging it, Doug. Get in there.
Now, Aaron, our next story is not totally Amiga related, but there is Amiga content on here. This is just something that came across my radar this week. This is a site called Nano Gems. I know that amongst the Amiga community, there are people that like to sit down and watch some intro screens and some demos now and again. And sometimes it can be a tough, you sort of get choice paralysis. There are so many intros out there. There's so many demos, countless numbers of these things, and you want to see sort of a selection of the best of the best. And of course, that's a very subjective thing, but the people over at NanoGems have done just that. They tout themselves as a curated selection of the best tiny intros from the demo scene. So you can get on here and you can select intros from any number of systems, including the C64, the Amiga, DOS, the ZX Spectrum, and you can run these things right in the browser, just in a little video player. And so it's a neat way to kind of sample what's out there in terms of both modern and classic demos slash intro screens. Aaron, have you run across NanoGems before?
Listen, you've done it again, Boat. I've never heard of this, but this is exactly what I'm looking for. You mentioned it. There's so many things out there, and then you pick on one randomly. Sometimes it blows your mind, and sometimes it's not that great. You know what I mean? The thought that there's a curated list over multiple platforms, this is an excellent find. I think you did good job. This is the second time in 2 weeks you've come up with one of these. This would be great. I was just watching Jack Flack's live stream on Wednesday, and he started off the show by, I believe he was playing like a newer DOS demo video, and it was really interesting. And I thought to myself, I haven't seen much stuff from the DOS, side of the tracks. And so I like the idea of having multiple platforms to look at. I like the way that they've got these split up here as well. This looks great, Bo. Very good find, man.
Yeah, yeah, and of course, you can check out all of these links at bit.ly/Amiga News. Next up, Aaron, this
Hi.
is a video that we've seen these sorts of videos before. What can you do with a checkmate? This comes from, of course, one of the big players in the retro space, Jan Beta. And he is finally getting around to reviewing the 1500 plus checkmate case and converting a bog standard Amiga 500 into, what the 1500 promises, which is turning, a wedge Amiga into an upgradable, computer, basically turning it into a big box Amiga. This is, of course, very well shot. He goes through all of the different steps. He talks about the external keyboard. I'm still not a fan of that external keyboard. I think for the box, the 1500 checkmate box being as pretty as it is, I wish that the keyboard would match it in terms of aesthetics. But I mean, you can't beat the production quality of this video. If you're looking for one video to watch, if you're trying to decide whether or not you should turn your 500 into this, more expandable box via the checkmate, check this one out.
I do like some of this guy's stuff, and I will say, in reference, I think the keyword looks crummy, but of course you know this as well. They were limited on what they could do with it aesthetically because they had to fit the guts of the A500 keyboard in that box.
Sure.
So it's
Sure.
they're kind of it was an inelegant solution, but it was elegantly done. I mean, they did the best they could given the parameters. Of course, hey, listen, the checkmate case, I've always thought it was a very interesting bit of kit. It's too pricey for me to ever dip my toe in the pool of that. I'll be honest with you. But I do like the fact that it's got a lot of uses. There's a lot of neat stuff you could do with it. It does sort of liberate your 500 from the wedge case if that's what you want. I think it's a decent thing, but like I said, the price was just too much for me. What did he give a conclusion on this, Bo? What did he put it over? What did he think?
Well, I think that he basically just said what you said. He said, that it's worth it. It's totally worth it if you have it at 500 and you want to make it expandable in a big box, format. This is the only game in town, regardless of what the price is.
Yeah.
So,
short of doing it yourself. But I will say with the proliferation of 3D printing and a lot of just very clever people, I would not be terribly surprised if there are some people out there who did sort of like what David Z did, and the fellow that made this case with the Mister. There's probably some sort of 3D solution that you could use if you want to go that route as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm sure that there are 3D printed solutions. It all comes down to, at the end of the day, you're always making that call on where you fall in the price to, fit and finish spectrum.
I fall way down there.
Yeah, and if you want something that looks like it was a professionally made product, the checkmate is the way to go.
Yeah.
But if you're happy with something just a couple notches below that, 3D printed stuff, man, it keeps getting better and better.
It sure does. And I will say that the checkmate is well supported. I mean, that's one thing that that dude stands by his stuff. So you do get that. I will say, not everyone's going to do that. So I will say that when you spend the money, you do get that. That's for darn sure. If that's it, and that's something that a lot of people need.
Yeah, yeah. And our next story is about an upcoming Amiga game. This is a game called Super Metal Hero. Okay. This game is being optimized to run on a standard A1200, and it's a combination shooter and platformer. And I've got to say, Aaron, I love the way that this game looks. It's got the art style that just ticks all of my boxes. If you look at the first video here on Indie Retro News, you can see the shooting level where the ship looks big and cartoony. It looks like something out of an 80s anime, I love the way that the enemy tanks look. The backgrounds are just really nice, big, and colorful. And then this is only half of the experience because there's also a platforming component to the game, and the platforming component looks very good too. It is a side scroller. To me, what immediately came to mind is if you can imagine sort of what you look at with Soccer Kid or a Brian the
That's the
Lion
first thing I thought of was Soccer Kid. It's exactly
Kid.
yeah.
This still, I mean, I got to be honest, it suffers from the same sort of Euro trappings. It's like these guys still haven't learned yet that you don't want to put like half of your screen be just like this brick edifice. But I'm trying to overcome my biases and my prejudices and be more open minded towards my platformers, especially with the series, the ranking of Amiga platformer videos. So I'm going to give this one a shot for sure. I may end up actually shelling out some dough for this because this really looks above and beyond. There's lots of games currently in development. I go on Indie Retro News all the time and look this stuff up. This is one that really is kind of sits head and shoulders above a lot of the platforming and shooting games that are coming down the pike for the Amiga.
I can see where this would tickle your fancy boat because it's cutesy. It's
Mhm.
it's like the European take on the like something on the NES or something in terms of
Right.
which and I know that's your bag. It looks good. I
Yeah.
will say the second level, the scrolling through the town, I really like the way that the little engine they were using there. It looks real fine.
Mhm.
It's got the graphics are pleasant. It's got little parallax going on, multi-layer. I like it. It looks good. We'll have to see how it comes along, but it looks like they've gotten quite a bit of it done. So it looks good.
Yeah, yeah. All right. And then we move on, Aaron, to a story that it's sort of a serendipitous follow up to last week's story where we talked about Sacktown and the Amiga festival that goes on over there. And the guest speaker at their banquet is Tim, Don't Record Me, Jennison.
Oh
Well, it
yes.
turns out that Tim doesn't really have a problem with putting his thoughts to tape because he was just on an episode of the Retro Hour released today. Released today, Aaron. Of course, Tim Jennison, the mind behind the new tech and the video toaster. He also made what looks like a pretty interesting documentary. I was doing some research on Tim, and he did a documentary on Vermeer. Are you familiar with Vermeer?
I'm not. I'm not, Bo. Fill me in, man.
Vermeer is one of the Dutch masters. You might recognize them from the cigarette or the cigar box. Remember the old Dutch masters cigar boxes?
Yes.
My dad used to smoke those, so that was my first dealing with Vermeer. But they, he was one of the painters in the Renaissance era that really painted these photorealistic scenes where the light and the way that the light falls in the shadows, people can't believe that somebody could paint that well without assistance.
Hmm.
And so Tim Jensen actually goes into his particular theory that says that he uses sort of, this like glass and mirrors and projectors and things where he was essentially, Vermeer was doing a very high form of tracing to get the exact way that the perspective and the light falls on various objects and things. And that kind of thing. I love that stuff because I love art history. And so I will check that out. And I wouldn't have known about that if I hadn't been looking up Tim Jensen. So, but if you want to, I'm sure he doesn't talk at all about that on the Retro Hour. I'm sure he talks about the video toaster. You can check out his interview on the Retro Hour. Always a good
Yeah,
time.
retro hours. Listen, how they get these. I mean, they've been going for a while now. They're on episode 342, and they started right around the same time we did, I believe,
Hmm.
boat. And they've had pretty much guests almost every week, which
Yeah.
is, I mean, that's a heck of a challenge just to get those guests, and then
Hmm.
come up with the ability, get in there and tangle with them. I mean, I don't have the nerves for it. And I give the boys credit. Of course, you got three real good guys in there. A couple of the guys we've known for a long time. So yeah, it's a quality show. If you ever checked out the Retro Hour, I'm sure almost everyone in here has. But if you haven't, give them a shot because they're great.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So, um, our final story, Aaron, you're like you told me to put this in. I haven't looked at it yet, so I'm going to let you lead the dance. What's the deal
Well,
with the Commodore Amiga Global
first of
Alliance?
all, this popped up in the Discord. I wish I knew who posted this. I should go back and look. But this popped up in the Discord, and when I saw the title of it, I was like, I gotta. What is this? Then I saw Mr. Pleasance was on there. I'm like,
Hmm.
bam, that's all I need. I'm in. And so I watched. Now the audio on this is The audio and video in this are kind of shakeroo because this was just shot
Hmm.
shot at this meeting, the NWAG. What is that? The Northwestern Amiga group or something like that. Bode.
Northwestern Amiga group, I
Yeah.
would say.
And so he's pitching this, and he says this is the first time he's ever brought it up. This thing here. By the way, Mr. Puzzle looks like he's in really good shape there. But anyway, the gimmick is so the pitch is you've got all the Amiga's got this powerful group of fans, a huge fan base, Bode,
Right.
and scattered all over the globe. Okay, and he mentions that he thinks the Amiga fan base is bigger than any football club. And he says it's a powerful group. He goes, but the problem
that is undeniably false.
Well, no, I mean, it depends on the league you're talking about.
Do you think the Amiga fan base is bigger than the fan base of Manchester United?
Yeah. Oh gosh, yes, absolutely. So anyway, just listen. Would you just ignore that because just ignore a lot. Anyway. So but I mean, it's a big fan base. All right, I see where he was going.
It's a big fan base.
So, anyways, he says, listen, what we need to do here is we need to unify the fan base, okay?
Right.
Into sort of like, I don't want to call it a governing body, but sort of a loose republic of various groups. Okay. So which is sort of, and so what you would do here, you would have your Commodore Amiga Global Alliance, and part of this would be a big web page. He named off some of the people that would be working on this page, and what the page would do, it would be sort of this all-encompassing news page. It would have whenever groups are having meetings or shows are going on, or it would all have links, tons of links, right? Links out the yin yang. And you would he mentioned some of the guys working on it. These are real people. I mean, they're like,
well, it looks like they've got 6 webmasters. I've not heard the term webmaster used with a straight face in many a year.
That's right. That's right.
Here we are.
That's how they do it.
You've got some guys with YouTube channels.
Yeah.
You've got a guy with a Bachelor of Science in computing.
Yeah.
So that's good. You want to have people like that on board. The founder of Amiga Passion magazine in Italy is you got to have Amiga Passion.
That's a good one. Well, yeah.
There's one guy, he's just billed as a marketer and a futurist.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, he mentions him. He mentions where are you seeing this information at? Because I didn't even see it.
I'm watching the video.
Oh, you're watching the video. Okay, great. This. So anyway, here's the upshot of that. So forming a global unifying force. All right. It's like the Justice League. And then what you do is you will have a yearly dues, and the money for the dues will go to support the structure of this thing. Now the first year, I believe the yearly dues starting off. I believe he said they were £30.
They're 30. You can become a supporter at any level,
and so £30 right now. That's about the same as $30 right about now. We're about even these days. So we're actually we'd come in at a break this time around if we want to get in. And if you sign up for it, you get a bundle of goodies. Now, I didn't get to see all the bundle of goodies, but I know one of the things is a digital copy of his first book is one of them. What else is in there, Bo?
You can get it for the £30 Founders Bundle.
That's right.
Okay. You get a copy of his ebook, Commodore: The Inside Story.
Or the audio version.
You can get the audiobook. You can also get the documentary that just came out, Amiga Alive and Kicking. I'll tell you right now, that documentary is worth the price of admission.
Have you seen that?
Because I am in that documentary.
Oh man, they're making us pay for that.
That's right.
Have you seen? You haven't seen it yet, though, have you?
Of course I have. I backed it on Kickstarter.
How did you come off in that?
I look amazing.
Really? But what did you say? Awesome. You didn't bury me, did you? At any point?
No. I think I was drunk because I said something good about it.
Oh, good. That'll be good.
So, and then you also get, check this out. You get a music. This is called Everybody's Girlfriend.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's a celebration in music of 10 years of Amiga. Okay.
Oh yeah. I've heard about this. Yeah.
It says real music, live performers, something for everyone, mix of genres and music styles. It sounds like a K-Tel record.
Well, yes.
This is, and the music design, of course, was done by one David Pleasance. So it looks like if you become a founding member, David Pleasance will give you some of his things.
Well, but you've told me that he's quite the talent. I believe he plays a Spanish guitar.
He plays a mean Spanish guitar. A mean Spanish guitar.
I know a lot of people are looking on this, and I've seen some of the replies, and I'm mocking. Now, first of all, I like Mr. Pleasance quite a bit. I think,
of course, you do,
and because he's my kind of guy. I mean, in all honesty. And I'm one of these guys. I like to form alliances and stuff. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I like Marvel team up. You know, I like the
West
Avengers.
Coast Adventures.
That's right. And I like the idea. I really, it's not the worst idea. To have if you could come up with this sort of all-encompassing place that everyone threw in on to like give all this news and stuff, that'd be great. I mean, it really would. But at the end of the day, I don't know how much of a chance this is going to have, given the fracturing of the community, and I'm not sure how people are going to be willing to pitch in for dues on something like this. I don't know how it would work out, to be honest with you. But that's an interesting idea. I'm not going to poo-poo it. I'm not. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and see what happens. But I found it interesting that came up, and they've even got a logo. I don't know if you saw the logo with the interlock, like shaking hands.
Yeah, they've got a logo with the shaking hands.
Yeah,
sort of like a "Wish You Were Here" type thing,
which is cool. So
you've got, and we haven't even gone into $30 or £30 is just the beginning. You can give more money, to David Pleasance, and he will write things on a PowerPoint slide about what you do. So it says, if you give $50, you will become what's known as an individual provider of any service to the community. Bam.
Well, there's
get on it.
But I mean, there could be a benefit there. There could.
You want to sign on to be a company as a company subscription, only £100 a year. If you want to be a wholesale distributor of whatever it is they're selling, it's going to cost you £150 per year.
See, you're sort of burying this. But the thing
Listen,
is,
man,
if you're
you weren't there. You weren't in Ireland.
That's true.
When the Friend OS talk was going on.
Yeah, but
you haven't sat through that.
Everything before that. Because we've interviewed Mr. Pleasance, you've met him personally. You always told me he seemed like a real sweet guy. I'm not gonna bury the guy. I'm not gonna bury his creation. If he's got a plan, and listen, I mean, there are merits to something like that if you could pull it off. The pulling of it off will be difficult. But I really admire I will watch it.
I admire your inability to say anything negative about this scam.
Well, we don't know that. I'm not going to throw in on that. We don't know what's going to happen with this. I'm willing to listen, man. I'm willing to listen. Anyway, I thought it was interesting, and I knew this guy was going to get killed over this, so I at least wanted to mention it and try to be as neutral as possible and see where we're going to go from here. But that's the Commodore Amiga Global Alliance. Cool. I like the idea of a global alliance boat. That'd be awesome too.
We have a global alliance. It's called the Amigos Everything Amiga Podcast.
That's true.
And guess what? You don't even need to pay $30 a year to be part of it.
Well, you're not wrong.
What we do need is someone to slip us a little cash for providing a great service to the community.
Mm-hmm.
And that one person is Frank from RetroRewind.
You got that right. You got that right. In fact, Frank's in the house tonight. We're happy to see you, Frank. Gosh, what can we say about Retro Rewind that hasn't been said? I mean, let's boil it down. Let's go back before Frank was around. Like, here we are in the States boat. Hey, I need to get some crap recap boat. What do I do with it? The answer is
you do it yourself, and then you mess it up.
Well, that's true.
Then you put it in the closet.
Sort of buried
That's
me there,
what I
boat.
do.
But no, no boat. You have to put it in a box and that sucker to Europe. Is what I'm saying. If you need parts, trust me on this one. It's time to wait 1,000 years. And let me tell you something. The mail right now is not what I would call buzzing along, if you know what I mean. And so all of a sudden, what hones into view, coming across the horizon like a beacon of light, it's Frank at RetroRewind.ca. And what's in that beacon? What's in the beacon is quality service on all your Commodore machines. I'm not just talking the C64. I'm talking the C128. I'm talking stuff like the CDTV. I'm talking about weird stuff, the CD32, Amiga 2000. Frank can help you on all that stuff. How? Well, for one thing, he can sell you parts, upgrades, replacements. He can sell you solutions for your hard disk storage, for card storage. He can sell you replacement ROMs. You want to upgrade your ROMs? He can take care of you on that. If you want to do it yourself, he'll sell you the caps for it. He doesn't have a problem with it. But he'll also do the service for you. You need to get your stuff recapped, he'll take care of your business. And as if that was enough, he can also take care of some of the action on your Coco. You got a Coco? You want to get a Coco SDC? He's your man. Trust me, these things aren't easy to get. But when Frank came around, suddenly, here we are. Stuff's not as hard to get anymore, especially if you're in North America, Boat. And how can they save a few bucks on this stuff, Boatster?
Listen, you fill up your cart with goodies, and then when you go to check out, put in the promo code Amigos10. You'll save an extra 10% off the already almost criminally low prices at Retro Rewind. We thank Retro Rewind for being a sponsor of Amigos, and we hope you check them out.
Absolutely, Boatster.
Now, Aaron, let's talk about Lost Patrol.
We're going to get into it. Everybody, get your knee waders on. We're going to the swamp. Now, Boatster, before we get into this thing, as I often do, has this one ever came across your path before on your day-to-day use of the Amiga?
Never.
Yeah. I'd heard of this one, but I'd never played it. And I had been scared to try it because all the videos I ever saw of it were a weird, creepy map that I knew would be confusing and hard to understand. But this week, as always, the game selection committee, they put you out on, you have to walk the plank on some of these. And thankfully, this is one of those planks where you dive in and actually the water's warm and comfortable. It's not tepid with a bunch of sharks in it. So the Lost Patrol, released in 1990, and it came on 2 discs, published by Ocean, of course, and developed by the awesomely named Shadow Development. That's a great name. You know they're awesome. This is all they ever did, as far as I can tell. So they were a shadow of a developer. There were quite a few people that worked on this, just to knock off a few. Some of the coders, you've got a guy named Chris Wilson, who also worked on a game that I'm actually going to go revisit soon called Centurion Defender of Rome. I'd heard of that one. There's a guy that coded on this that's simply called Kraftwerk. Unrelated to the band, no doubt. There's a fellow named Nick Byron who worked on a game called Wacky Races. There's a guy called Simon Cook that coded it. And then the graphics were done by a fellow named Ian Harling. And Ian Harling is actually a guy who's actually done something we've heard of and played, but he was involved in the graphics on One Step Beyond.
Paul and Curly, yeah.
He also worked on Air Mania, No Excuses, Power Play, Thunderstrike, and Warlock. The music on this is a very revered tune in this, worked on by a fellow named Chris Gleister. So he's the fellow that did the music. And again, I don't have any other credits for him. So as far as I know, this is all he did on the Amiga. This was an ECS OCS game that started its life on the Amiga and eventually was ported to the ST, and in the next year went to the DOS machines. Boat. So this game, as we mentioned at the start of the program, is a game that takes place in Vietnam during the Vietnam conflict. The game opens. Basically the flavor text. I'm just going to read through this flavor text, because it does a good job of telling you exactly what's going on. June 7th, 1966, a U.S. helicopter returning troops for a period of R&R in Saigon crashes in the remote central highlands of Vietnam. Now the 7 survivors of that crash face a nightmare trek across 57 miles of harsh terrain that is infested with booby traps and enemy soldiers. The journey to Du Hoc, the nearest U.S. base, would test the most able of teams, but with little food or ammunition, their chances of making it home are less than slim. Their mission is now yours. Are you a survivor? I agree with everything they said there. Your chances are next to slim, and the path there is full of booby traps and other horrible things. But this is the entry that you play into the Lost Patrol. Now, Boat, as this game comes up, there's a cool cutscene. All that it's really neat with the big helicopter coming up and stuff. What did you think of this thing as it honed into view? And what were your first impressions?
Well, I wasn't sure what to expect.
Mm.
Whenever you read about a game being set in Vietnam, you're not, they could take that in any number of ways. This could be something as simple as like a commando type game where you're just sort of fighting through waves of enemies, or you can take it the other way and make some sort of in-depth strategic simulation where you're essentially moving pieces on a map, it's like a board game type of thing. As I started playing this game, I realized that this company or this development team had a deep abiding respect for the fine folks over at Cinemaware and tried their best to take the Cinemaware format and refashion it into a Vietnam setting.
Yeah, I think you just, in fact, uh, look, doing some research, these guys actually pitched this game to Cinemaware, who
Hmm.
passed.
I'm not
Yeah,
surprised that they well, I am surprised at that. Well, I am, and I'm not surprised they passed on it. Like we talked about at the beginning of the show. Anytime you do anything related to Vietnam, people are going to get skittish. Especially your marketing types, because nobody wants to be the company that is seems like they're just out to make a buck off the backs of the people that were involved in the conflict. So,
yeah,
but on the other hand, this came out in 1990. 1990 was kind of the height of Cinemaware. And this game is if the game was in a finished state and they pitched it to Cinemaware at the last minute, I am kind of surprised that Cinemaware turned it down because it does fit with their sort of MO, to use a military term, almost completely.
good one, Boat. The funny thing about this game, you're right, and I don't know Cinemaware's reasoning for passing, right? And I think this game could have used some Cinemaware flair, which we'll get into when we talk about the gameplay. However, you may have nailed it. Cinemaware is an American company, and this is a touchy subject. And yeah, this was when the reason Ocean ended up picking this up, and I saw this mentioned multiple places, was they were looking for a game to follow Platoon, which had done quite well for them. And this game early on was actually effectively going to be Platoon 2. And they actually they sort of tried to push the developers in an arcadey Platoon 1 sort of way, in which was not the intention when this game was dreamed up. That's not what they wanted to do. And so eventually Ocean just sort of kind of let them do what they wanted to do. And they sort of dropped the Platoon 2 moniker. Because you got to think, you mentioned that this was the height of this stuff. You had your Platoons. You had games like Navy SEALs and stuff that were doing pretty good business, for Ocean. So you could see why they would do that. But yeah, in terms of Cinemaware, if this wasn't being a touchy subject wasn't the issue, I agree with you. This would perfectly fit into their catalog. Once it was monkeyed with a little bit. It's a 2-disc cinematic game, just like what they do. It would have fit in there perfectly. So, with all that said, let's get into the game proper. It's not like there's a lot of setup for this game. You go into it. You play. You basically run all 7 guys, but their main character that you're in charge of is Sergeant Charlie Weaver. He's the guy that takes charge of the 7 survivors. One thing you'll learn in this game is as long as he's alive, you can still keep playing. If he gets killed, the game's over. Each of the 7 guys have their own health, stamina, and they even have their own like abilities. Some are better at like fighting, some are better at shooting, stuff like that. And you're gonna go through and just basically try your best to get as many of these guys through as possible. Well, what are you getting them through? So the majority of this game takes place on effectively a map screen. It's a map of the general area of Vietnam that you're in. You're going to see sort of the map at the top, and then at the bottom are some simple controls, 2 arrows, which will let you move the map back and forth. And then there's a selector so you can get to your troops, so you can monitor their morale and monitor their health and whatnot. And then there's also a compass, and in between all this stuff is some text that'll tell you what direction you're going or what's happening. And most of the game, you'll play from this particular vantage. At the top of the screen, You're going to see what day you're on and what time of the day it is, which are both important because this has a true day-night cycle. You can't do certain things at night, like travel. Once you understand the map, I mean, this is the most basic stuff. You're going to also want to know, and I didn't know this right away until I figured out, if you right-click, you get a separate set of things you can do. Everything from searching the area to resting to camping to setting traps.
What it is, if you're trying to picture it in your mind, picture the lower third of the screen. When you right click in the middle part of the screen, you get a Sierra adventure game type drop down bar that allows you to select other commands that aren't immediately visible from the menu.
Let's talk about the interface for a minute, Bo, before we move on to the actual gameplay. How did it strike you? I mean, and that second menu struck me as, it seemed like an odd way to do that to me. I mean, it's functional, but that seemed weird to me. I mean, why did they give certain things menu buttons and certain things you had to access through the pull downs? It was weird.
Yeah. Weird and not good are the words I would use.
Yeah.
If you're going to, you need to choose one or the other.
Yeah.
You can either have an icon-driven menu or you can have a text pull-down menu, both of which are fine. But you need to choose one or the other. You can't arbitrarily have some options be icons and some be drop-down. It just doesn't make sense. It's also confusing to the player.
Yeah.
I really don't like games that lock you out of parts of the screen with your mouse cursor. I almost have this physical reaction where I just want to bust free of the lower third of the screen. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do, because you couldn't go up to, I exactly know what you mean, because you couldn't go up to the map area. You were restricted to the bottom.
Now, I guess they did that because they didn't want you to think that you could do anything on the map, which, again, that's a mark of poor game design.
Yeah, because why?
Why
couldn't we do? Could you put an arrow up there?
You should be able to do stuff on the map. What they should have done was they should have done away with the entire lower third of the screen altogether. Put the compass rose in the corner, just overlay the map, and then put the drop down in all the white space that you have up at the top of the screen,
exactly,
where it says day and time.
Listen, we're in lockstep on this. And we never talk about these games. It always amuses me when we have the same thought. Listen, I assume they wanted to make sure that the text that you came across was front and center because it's important. But I mean, even if I would have just put all the commands over the top, and you could just leave the text screen at the bottom, but you could just as easily have that text scroll over the map without even having to have any window at all.
What you do is you just have the text screen appear when you need to put some text on the screen. Have it overlay the map. It's not as if you're going to miss any hot action going on the map.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. So we can both agree that, I mean, is the interface serviceable? Yes. Is it? I mean, it works. I figured it out, but it's not. It's not an elegant solution. And I think this is one area where you're like somebody like a Cinemaware would have gotten in there and said, no. Something else I should mention is some of this game you can play with the mouse. Sometimes you have to have the joystick, and so like not all of it's playable with the mouse. And I don't like games where most of it's playable with the mouse, and all of a sudden you got to grab the stick. I never liked that.
You are able to use the keyboard for all of the parts that are it's joystick / keyboard.
Right, but you could still it seems like if you're going to have if this is going to be a mostly mouse driven game, I would like to at least be able to play some of the, and I don't see any reason why you couldn't have any of this stuff played with the mouse, but that's just me.
Well, I mean, here's my theory, and I know we're going to get into the mini games in a second.
Yeah.
But of all the mini games, the one-on-one combat one seems to be the least fleshed out. And I have a feeling that was a missive from Ocean saying, listen, you got to have something on here that we can put on the back of the box that shows you kicking the crap out of the Viet Cong hand-to-hand style. So that's why they put that game in there, and you have to play that with the stick or the keyboard.
We're definitely going to talk about that. But just before we get to that, let's talk about what you do on this map. So basically, the map has your helicopter down on the ground, and it starts you off with a marker, and then you're working your way across this map to get to the ultimate end of it, which is your American Air Base,
the Duhawk
base. I believe it's 58 kilometers away, something like that. And so what you do is you move your cursor on the map by clicking on the compass. It's got north, south, east, west, northeast, north, south, blah blah blah. And so you click on the compass and your guys will move a step. Now, in the middle of the compass, this is another one that's odd to me. In the middle of the compass is a little square, and it just looks like a little square. But if you click on it, it will let you. It'll have you activate how your troops will move. You can move like at double speed, normal speed, or you can be real careful, to hopefully avoid any booby traps.
Right.
And so again, not where I would put that, but it's there. It's you can use it. It's just weird. So as you look at the contours of the map, you work your way across it. You'll be able to make out certain things in the map. There's little paths and bridges, and you can see where the enemy territory is. And you try to get your patrol safely across this map. Now, you don't just move the patrol. You also have to occasionally, sometimes you've got to stop and let them rest. Sometimes you have to stop and give them some food. You've got to decide on how much rations you're going to give everybody because you've got a limited amount. And these are the decisions you make as you go. So a lot of this game is some kind of like a loose strategy game. I mean, you're making decisions, but it's hard to tell if the decisions you make are the right ones. And then intermingled with these decisions, and your men will grumble, and sometimes they'll get real. There'll be unrest amongst your troops if you don't give them enough rest or enough food, or you keep making poor choices, and eventually they could even turn on you, or just stop marching, and so you can lose guys that way. Now let's get to the meat of the matter. Often, when you pick a direction, something will happen in game, and what will happen in game will be at the bare minimum, you will activate a booby trap, and when that happens, and I didn't find a way to successfully not hit these booby traps, even if I was moving carefully. So as far as I can tell, you just in case they're going to hit them. Did you have that same experience, Boat, on the booby trap?
From what I read online, depending on who you choose to be the scout in your squadron, determines the rate of which you come across booby traps. Of course, you want to protect your leader. You want to protect Weaver as much as you can. So you want to get him out of the front.
Yeah.
And you want to let one of the other, meat bags get in there. Maybe that's why they put a grenade in my pack, because I kept referring to him as meat bags.
Yeah, that's probably why, Boat. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
But again, this is not something that's in the manual. The strategy part of this game is just totally random, and I think that it was that way by design. I think the developers wanted you to feel like you would feel if you were in this situation. If you crash land in the middle of the jungle, you have no idea if you should march double time or if you should take it cautiously. You don't know how you should ration your food. You don't know anything. You don't, you know what direction the base is in, but that's about it.
Yeah.
And so it shows you it's an we often say, that it's an exercise in futility, but it might be an exercise in futility by design. The problem is, and the question is, does that make for a good game? And the answer is no, because when you play a game, you expect to be able to master it by your wits or by your reflexes. And when you make the outcomes random and bad, with no sort of it's not as if when you die, you get a rundown saying well, maybe try this next time, or, a little hint or something. You get none of that. You don't get any of that in the manual. And so it just makes you feel like you really have no control over these sections.
I will say, I think you're right. I mean, at least certainly some of what you said I agree with, and that is, and I assume part of the reason it's like that is for replayability as well. If you could figure this out, you would just rush it. And there's a lot of ways where this is, again, much like some similar games we've played, where really the replay value on some of these isn't high, but this one, this game is to me is a mixed bag in terms of how it ends up. But I do want to get over what you're going to face aside from stuff like scouts going out.
Oh, and it's worth noting that these events, you've got basically two types of events. You have story-based events that you have no control over, and then you have your classic Cinemaware-style quick-time events.
That's right.
So when we're talking about finding booby traps and getting exploded by them, those are story events that you have no control over.
Yeah. So here amongst the things you're going to run into, all right, and Boat mentioned this one earlier. We'll start with it. The hand-to-hand segment. This is a great one. And story wise, I was tickled and amused by this because what happens is you come across a one lone VC soldier, and he challenges one of your team to a hand-to-hand battle, no guns. All right, and so they proceed to have this battle. And I looked at it's funny you mentioned the manual. The manual is surprisingly unhelpful for a lot of the stuff. I
Yeah.
was expecting a
Yeah.
real expansive manual, and it wasn't. There wasn't that much to it, but it does give you what your guys' fighting abilities are. He can throw a kick and punch and then block. But I mean, the fighting in this reminds me a lot of the fighting in Rocket Ranger when you fight that Nazi in that. It's
Mhm,
real,
mhm.
real basic. This is probably a
Yeah.
slight step up from that, but not much. But just
Mhm.
the fact that here you are, you're behind the enemy lines, your guys are tired and sick, and they're lost. But you still got enough time to go out, and instead of just shooting this guy, you're gonna go out and go mano a mano with him in a backfield somewhere in the swamp. It's so stupid. I would just shoot this guy or take him prisoner or something, use him as a guide, anything. But
Mhm.
anyway, yeah, you just basically it's a very think of the most basic fighting game you ever saw, and then that's what the hand to hand part of this is. Then you've also got the battle sequence. This one comes up a lot. This is the one I got the most about. This is when you are basically jumped by a VC assault team that are trying to machine gun you, and you've got to man the big M60 machine gun and try to gun down these people. And this basically is sort of like a light gun game almost, or it reminds me of Beachhead, where you basically use the mouse to move the cursor around the screen to shoot these guys that jump up. But there's a twist, and the twist is you can lower and raise your position using your right mouse button, and it literally lowers and raises the screen. It's a pretty good effect, isn't it, Boat, in terms of
It is.
what you do?
Yeah, the way that you have to raise and lower your altitude is what makes the game fun. Because you are, of course, getting shot by the VC, but then they're also flinging grenades.
Yeah,
And if you don't lower yourself down, realistically speaking, it's dumb because they can just toss
it
the
is
grenade over
dumb.
the wall.
It is dumb.
But it adds an element of strategy because if you're able to duck down before the grenade reaches the arc of its flight, it does not land inside your little nest.
Yeah, it took me a little while to figure that out because it's such a
Mhm.
goofy thing,
Yeah,
but
and
it's
it's not
goofy.
that the graphics, the way this is presented is not very great. Like, well, okay,
It's pretty
let's
good.
talk about the graphics in this game because
Okay, go ahead.
they sort of work in two zones, okay?
Yeah,
Interspersed with the map, when you watch your little X cross the map, as you encounter various scenes, you get beautiful pixel art of the
yeah,
Vietnamese countryside that's animated. You'll see, for example, you'll see some workers working in a rice paddy,
yeah,
and you'll see them, with their sticks and they're sort of, I don't know what goes into harvesting rice exactly, but they're sort of doing that.
yeah,
You go through and you see, like, whenever you take a rest, you see this picture of your soldier just sort of down, his head's at his hands.
yeah,
You've got that art, and then also overlaid with that art, you have digitized video. You have digitized video that was, if you read the docs, was actually this sort of like in-house digitization software that they use to make these digitized clips, and it looks like newsreel clips of soldiers marching through the Vietnam, and so this game gets an A for me in terms of putting you in the environment,
yeah.
putting you in the scene.
I agree with you. It's great when you see like a uh, uh, like the skiff they're going through. Sometimes you'll come to a river or something. Sometimes it
Hmm.
shows your guys going through a swamp and or a water and they've got their guns up in the air.
Hmm.
Sometimes it shows them eating. And sometimes it shows like when you come across a village, it's got the pictures of the natives and stuff. I love them. I love that. In fact, one of the things this game does is set the tone quite nicely. It's
Yeah.
got very atmospheric music that can now it's I like the music in this, but I turned it off eventually because it just repeats over and over.
Right.
But I will
Right.
say I do like the tune quite a
Hmm.
bit. But they do a good job, and the graphics in this are amongst some of the best we've seen. They're certainly in the ballpark of your Cinemaware titles in terms of not the overworld map, but I mean like the actual mini games, the digitized stuff. I appreciated the little, like you said, the little. I mean, of course, by today's standards, these are horrible. But the little animated sequences, that would have been quite a big deal back in the day to see something
Right.
like that.
Right.
Come down the pike. So I think the game. The problem is, I think graphically, the game lets you down on the screen you see the most, which is generic and ugly. This is a place where an outfit like Cinemaware could have put some pizzazz, and they would have redone this whole area here and made it better. And they would have put a lot more music in this thing too, some more atmospheric stuff, some stuff that changed. This game needed some more. They needed more cuts of music, and some just some stuff to be made prettier. Anyway, getting back to the mini games we were talking about. So, of course, we mentioned the battle sequence, the hand-to-hand. There's a very bizarre one where you're trying to throw grenades at a guy that's some machine gunners that are shooting you in this, like, hedgerow. And so the gimmick here is you have to lob the grenade by holding your button down long enough to where the little bar comes up, just like your golfing boat. And then you have to aim the mouse and throw it at the right distance and then hope you kill him. I found this to be a frustrating a level because I would think I would be dead on this guy, and I'd heck when I'm killing these guys.
This might be the worst of the mini games.
Yeah.
Not because well, for many reasons. One, you don't get any. You push the, I think it's the right mouse button to pull the pin.
Yeah.
And then you hold the right or the left mouse button down to throw the grenade
while aiming.
Yeah. While aiming, yeah. And like you said, like when you get the hang of it, you're like, okay, I've got it. I'm ready to go. And you can hit wherever that shot is coming from dead on with a grenade. You see it explode all around it. They're like, no, you missed. You know, like the shots keep coming from there. I don't understand this. I don't understand why this game is so bad.
I didn't get that part. I had trouble. The other two mini games, I only literally played each of these and I spent a good deal of time with this game. I only played each of these like maybe one, maybe twice, and all the times I played it. Which the first one is your sniper section. This is when your outfit gets pinned down, and so you've got to take out the guy here and it's a magnified view. What'd you think of this one?
This is the best game.
Yeah, this was probably
the best.
I was disappointed I didn't get to see it more.
Well, here's what I did. Whenever I would get, because I played this on the good old FSUAE.
Yeah.
And whenever I would get to a mini game, I'd save state right there.
Oh, I didn't think of that. That's a good idea, Bo.
And that allowed me to practice these things.
Yeah.
Because you don't always see them all the time, like you said.
Yeah.
And the sniper game is great because you're looking through, you see the scene like you'd see out of your eyes, and then interposed on that, you see the sniper zoom lens, and it's very effective the way that it zooms in.
Yeah.
And you're essentially looking through your lens to see the flash of gunfire, and then shooting that point with your sniper rifle to knock these guys out. That it worked great. It's the best mini game of the bunch in my opinion.
Yeah,
it's
and
great.
it seems to be everyone's favorite is that one. And I will say I thought that was pretty interesting. Graphically, it looked really interesting. I like that one. And then the last one to talk about here, before we get to the village interaction, is the minefield. I literally got to this one time and I got instantly killed. But from what I read here, and Bo, maybe you could, since you played these a lot over and over, I know you have to go through. You're basically stuck in a minefield, and you're literally poking into the ground to try to find the mines. And
well, it's funny.
They come up. They only stay for a little while, and then they kind of disappear.
It's funny. I played this game a ton this week too.
Yeah.
I never once got this mini game.
Really?
Never once.
Yeah. I'm assuming you have to, I got it one time, but I was on it for
what
like
I would try to do is I would be like, okay, how do I get this thing to trigger? So I'd actually go up to where the minefields were on the map.
Yeah.
And that just kills you immediately.
Yeah.
So you can't do that.
Yeah, that's not good.
So,
now,
yeah.
Another thing you can do that's actually pretty interesting is you can, on the overhead map, you could actually go to a village, or there's multiple villages actually, and interact with the villagers there. Now, I learned early on, and then I did some reading to make sure I was right. Going and fooling with these villages is a bad idea. Like, it's not worth the effort, because what you do is you literally interact with using basically keywords, and there's a bunch of those in the manual. You can actually talk to the villagers. You can find Sometimes you can get money. I mean, you could literally torture. I mean, you're basically effectively threatening them. You could kill them. You can kill the whole village if you want
Well,
to.
yeah, when you come across these things, your two options are like harass, intimidate, torture, or kill.
Yeah.
There's not just like extend the hand of welcome. That is not one of your options.
Yeah.
So, and the thing is, like, you may run across a village that somebody puts you up for the night and gives you some food, you recover your strength, but you might run across a village that poisons your food and you die.
Yeah.
And guess what? You're in enemy territory. Guess how many friends you're going to run across? Not that many.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
I found the villages to be a waste of time, and I found them to also be just another missed opportunity to show, like, these are not your only options when you're I mean, maybe they were. I wasn't there. The old Vietnam defense, but
the village just reminded me of the pickup game in bar games where you basically
you reference that game way too much.
I'm sorry.
It seems like every game.
If you play the pickup game in bar games, you're trying to pick up the date, and so you've sort of got to figure out what to say to her in what order, and that's sort of what you do in the village, But I will say this to put this in context, because this does seem like a really harsh. I mean, there's real, like you said, it's easy to be real nasty, but it's funny. I just watched an interview with a Vietnam vet, just probably less than a week ago, and it was fresh in my mind.
Is this that one that pops up for me all the time, where it's like expert storyteller reveals
That's
what
it.
he saw?
That's exactly. I don't know why
Vietnam?
this popped up on my screen, but I watched that boat, and I recommend you watch it because it gives you some context to some of this stuff. Because if you think to yourself, why would the Americans be so mean to the people that they're effectively there trying to help? And there are reasons, and amongst the reasons are, and this is really all you need to know, is they could not tell who they could trust. They were intermixed with all these different villages and people you find on the streets are people that want to kill you or want to sell your information, or people that have no choice in the matter. And so it became routine to be cruel to these people, even if, I mean, and trust me, they didn't like the Americans either. Why did you burn my village and my farm down? Well, I don't know, because it's the way it shook out. So I will say, as cruel as it seems, and it is cruel, and this shows you how horrible this was. This was commonplace, just like in a lot of movies and stuff. That's not BS. That really happened. They would just go in and try to get information, and sometimes some people would just burn villages and kill people just as the rule. So yeah, that
right.
But it's sort of chilling. That was the chilling part of the game, for me anyway. Now, with all that said, Boat, did you ever make it to Do Hawk?
I never made it anywhere close to Do Hawk. I was not a stellar leader of my men. I marched them hard.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to run out of food, and I came to my demise in various ways. Of course, sometimes I would take damage in a firefight and would die of my wounds. Sometimes I would step on the old booby trap.
Yeah.
In one memorable occasion, one of the members of my team slipped a grenade into my pack and blew me up.
Yeah.
So
there's a morale factor with your troops, and they can get real angry real quick if you're making them march too quickly, if they're really hurt, if they aren't getting enough rest. There is a magic formula. I read about this literally right before we went on air. That there's a magic formula to pacify your troops and maximize your food. I'm not going to give it here. You can find it if you want it, but it's out there. So there's a way to do that. But your troops can turn on you or just stop marching, just quit entirely doing anything, and that's also a problem. I never made it. I never made it to Do Hawk either. I could clear the sort of mountain range there. I did that once. Most of the time, I didn't get that far. I mean, those booby traps are nightmares. The funny thing is, you can leave your own booby traps. You can. I think there's 3 different types of booby traps you can leave. Did you ever have any success doing this or figure out?
Well, again, this is a thing that you can do, like you said, and you do it, and you receive I never received any feedback as to like whether it was successful, what the point was. Like, it's not like when you drop a shell in Mario, and your guy does a little dance when,
No, it's not like that at all. No, I don't think that'd be appropriate either. You know,
Probably not.
one of the things you could do is search the area as well from this pull down menu. And it's funny, I had more success with that than I did at any village. I would just just randomly, I would find all food, ammo, So that's why I stopped going to the villages because they were too dangerous, and just started using that. One of the things that we should mention is that again, this has a day-night cycle. There's a clock at the top, so once it gets too dark, you ain't going nowhere. I found out that before 6 a.m., it's too dark to move. So you're basically dug in for the night. And the funny thing is, if you give your guys too much rest, they eat too much food, and that hoses you. That's part of the magic formula.
Right.
So that's part of it. With all that said, when this thing finally released, it was actually pretty well received. It sold well in the UK. It was on the UK's Amiga Top 10 chart. It got pretty decent reviews. We'll go over that in a little bit. People seem to like it pretty well. Like I said, it received well enough to where it got that DOS release a year later. The bad thing is it did make unfortunately, it made the German index for no-nos.
Well, yeah, I can see that. Yes.
Yeah, and I'm sure the village part was a good chunk of the reason why it made.
Not sure how well this sold in Vietnam either.
No, I mean, it's funny. That would be an interesting thing to find out. I'd be interested to see what they think of that sort of thing. In terms of the reception from the magazines, Lemon gave this a 7.87, and the average rating for the rest of the bunch was 75%. So that's fairly in line with the Lemon score. It's funny looking at these scores, though. By the way, Amiga Joker did review this, and they're German based at 62%. I'm looking at these scores, and they're really sort of all over the map. Like 05 gave it an 89%, but Amiga Computing gave it a 54. So Amiga Format gave it a 79. The One gave it a 73. So they were weird scores, but I mean, what do you think about this? It's the 75% seem about right for you on this one?
Yeah, actually, yes. This is the rare occasion that I agree with the Lemon score. I think this is a solid C title. It's got a lot of things going for it. Everything that we talked about. But it has too many gameplay flaws to make it anything above around a 75.
What did our people think of this one, Bo? Did they have a thought on the subject?
Yeah. Mitsuyama writes, I first played The Lost Patrol back in 1990, and even back then I thought it was lacking something. It's essentially a handful of minigames that are strung together to form an overall goal, very Cinemore-esque. None of the minigames are bad. The sniper game is my favorite, though I wish they'd use the Amiga's left and right audio channels to give you some indication of where the enemy shots are coming from.
Ooh.
Closely followed by the machine gun game. Yeah,
that's a great idea.
Yes, yeah. However, the frequency with which they occur meant that I became bored with them after only a couple of playthroughs. Music is good, but mixing in one or two more tunes would have been better than having the same tune constantly playing. The graphics are very nice, especially the screens that are often animations, work well, and are certainly better than watching the X slowly move across the map one pixel at a time. I think what's lacking is some sort of story that emerges as you progress across the map. Perhaps something that enables you to learn more about the members of your squad. This could have easily been accomplished by using the text window on the map screen to display snippets of information or conversations between your squad members. As it stands, however, it's not great, but it's also not terrible. 6 out of 10.
Those are some great suggestions. Who was that, Mitsuyama?
Yeah,
those are some outstanding suggestions because, if you look into it, like certain members of your crew have different skills. So you're going to want some of them to take care of your sniping and some of them to take care of your martial arts sections. It would be neat if there was some interplay there that you could hear, conversationally. That's another thing that Cinemaware probably would have added if they'd handled this to give it a little more personality, a little more depth, and artificial depth.
Right. And artificial depth is just as good as real depth.
That's right.
Just ask Elite. Lobsterminator writes, yet another Amiga game that had the seeds of something great, but the end product didn't quite reach its potential. The concept is unique, even today, where you have a war game that doesn't portray war as something cool, but instead opting for a more somber survivor experience. Many games are mediocre, and if I were to change something about this game, I would replace the action sequences with something more tactical or strategic, because I've never been a fan of mixing strategy and action. Maybe UFO style tactical combat, or maybe probability risk reward choices. The music is monotone, but I love the song, so I never get tired of it. A unique attempt that fell short, but still a memorable game. 7 out of 10.
Very good.
That's it for the Discord reviews this week.
Okay, wow, that's light.
Mhm.
Just for fun, again, we mentioned that this got a DOS release, and so we had a look at the DOS version of this. It looks just like you would expect. Just put
Yeah.
it that way. I would stick the Amiga was the lead platform. Now they may have. I'm looking at the DOS version. I did not play this. Did you give this a whirl in DOS mode?
No, that looks like starts with a B, ends with an ut.
Well, I mean, you can see that their options are different there. They've got more stuff at the bottom of the screen than what the Amiga version's got. So
Yeah,
maybe,
but it somehow manages to, like, I don't know if they I mean, yeah, but it's just so hard to get over those
yeah.
colors.
Yeah, well, and obviously they've downgraded a lot, just like for the ST, they had to kind of downgrade some of the art and stuff.
Mhm.
You listen, stick with what brought you to the dance on the old Lost Patrol. Anyway, to summarize my feelings on this, I really wish CinemaWare would have given this a shot. I think some of their panache would have went a long way, with this, some of their presentation. This game is it's an odd duck. I mean, in a lot of ways. I like the game. I like the mini games. Okay, I like the mood. I think they do a good job making you feel like you're in Vietnam and you're lost. I like that element to it. I like the art. I like the digitized video. I love all that stuff. But the actual map screen, the playing on the map screen, and some of the events just leave me a little bit cold, Boot, if I'm honest. I would like to have had a little more music as well, but I think that's the way I'd sum it up.
Yeah, good summation.
Thank you very much. That's all we got on that one, Boatster.
All right, let's head on over to the YouTube channel.
All right. So we've had a pretty good week this week, Bo. Had a couple releases. I'll let you talk about this one. It's funny, someone mentioned UFO, and lo, it came to pass. On the ZX, we had a quick look at the predecessor to UFO, the old Laser Squad. Bo, tell them about it.
Yeah, so Laser Squad is a Julian Gollop game. He is, of course, the mind behind Chaos, the man behind
Yes.
XCOM, and Laser Squad is sort of the midpoint between those two. Laser Squad, a tactical, turn-based strategy war game to be found on the ZX Spectrum. Quite a technical achievement on the humble specky. I had fun with this one, despite my initial misgivings.
This was we played this on the Amiga, but not to spoil it, but I think I like the Spectrum version a little bit better. For some reason, it just felt more at home there. But this was a good time, and then also, Bo, you want to talk about the tribute at the end of this as well. That's something worth going out of your way to see.
On our Discord channel. And by the way, if you want to get access to our Discord server, just head on over to patreon.com/Amigos podcast. We had several touching tributes written for Oliver Frey, the artist most known for his magazine covers of 8-bit micro magazines in the UK in the 80s. He passed away last week, and lots of people were very affected by his art. And so Paul, a.k.a. Hermsky of the Back to 8-Bit with Hermsky YouTube channel, put together some artwork, just like an artwork slideshow of Oliver's art. And we put that up on the screen, and we read some of those tributes. It was very touching.
Yeah, first of all, thumbs up to Hermsky. And I loved reading this. Bo, this was great, and you delivered it quite well, my friend. I really enjoyed this, and a lot of people seem to have enjoyed it as well. So yeah, check that out, and please check out Hermsky's channel as well. He's been putting out a lot of stuff here recently, some really good stuff, Bo. And this tribute was excellent.
Absolutely.
Next on the docket here, well, it had to happen eventually. It's myself and the Brent. We're back again this week. This time around, we looked at Japanese arcade exclusives. These are games that never made it to the States, sorta. And the game I picked, they had released 43 of these boards in the U.S., but I'm still holding that it's a Japanese exclusive, although Brit put my feet to the fire. But I looked at Ninja Baseball Batman, which hilariously was actually sort of kicked off by an American and then embraced by the Japanese. And
I had no idea about all of the names, like the Daryl Strawberry guy, the
yeah,
Jose Canseco guy.
yeah. It's funny. The first time I heard of this game, I mean, I'd played it, but never heard about it. But we used to get an old magazine called Game Room Magazine, and
Yeah, I used to get that too.
they did a cover story on the guy that made this, a real good
Oh.
interview, and that's when of course, now this is one of those games that like people in the know about, but now everyone that was in the know did a video about it, so pretty much I think everyone knows about it. But it was still an interesting game, and I enjoyed it because that's why I picked it. Brent, I got to give the guy credit. I hate to do it. He found this.
It is. Wait a minute. Go back to that scene. It looks like Brent is towering over you, which is hilarious.
He always looks
well, I
like
guess you can look at that at any point.
Yeah.
Hilarious because you are so much taller than Brent. It's not even funny. He must be sitting on like a booster seat.
Well, he does sit on a booster seat. That's true. But that helps him. It helps him feel like a big man. The second thing we found, Brent dug up this old Tato game from 1980, Bo. This is an old one. It's called Steel Worker. This was a Japanese exclusive. And lo and behold, this is a great game. I was stunned at this one. This is a early predecessor to like almost like a Lemming style game where you actually pick from various types of steel structure to make sure your guy gets across the screen.
Yeah,
it's a very
this is one
ZX looking game.
You want to talk about a game that would be right at home on the ZX Spectrum. There's even color clash. It's great.
I wouldn't be surprised if it ran on the same processor. So here's the thing: Happy was in the room, and I could hear him talking and or chatting. So you never know. I wouldn't be surprised if he might have it. This would be a great game to port. If I'm honest, there's nothing really like it, and it would be. It's not what I would call the most complex game, but it is fun. Now I will say it's funny because in the arcade you've got two buttons. The button to select your girder and the go backwards button because your guy runs as fast as conceivably possible towards his own death. So you have to hit that reverse button, and you only have a limited amount of those. So it's quite a game. I think everyone try it. It's Steelworker, and if you are so inclined, please check out ARG Presents. We had a good time with that one. But let's switch over to the Amigo stream team. We had a good volley of stuff this week. We're going to start out with our good buddy 48K Ram, and he's always got something interesting cooking. And on this stream, he did some Mac action. Mac, you're a big Mac guy, Bo. You love the man. Mac. He gets into some Mac demos here. It was Mac demo night. Yeah, the Mac can go, dude. I'm telling you. One thing I like about 48K Ram streams is he does some nights where he just does demos and stuff. And I'm not the biggest demo guy. But let me tell you something. I've had my eyes open to a couple machines here, just, and their abilities were far greater than I would have anticipated. So if you get a chance, check out 48K Ram on the Amiga Street Team. Please also check out his Twitch channel, 48K Ram. He broadcasts every Tuesday night, I think somewhere around 6:30. So please check him out. Always a good time. We had two offerings this week from our buddy Happy Coding. We were just talking about Happy Coding's home cooking. He had a part 1 and part 2 of his stream from August 4th. And this is where Happy just sits down and goes through and tries to give you tips and pointers on how to make ZX Spectrum games, graphical tricks, stuff that he does to make them. He's very good at explaining these things. He's an excellent hand at kind of holding your hand. And also, he can get technical, too. We were just talking about him with the game on ARG Presents. He's already made one of the games we covered on there into a game for the ZX that turned out great. And so you never know, but he certainly has the chops. So if you are so inclined to give him a look, he also does a Twitch show from which these are taken. If you look him up on Happy Coding, I think it's Happy Coding ZX on Twitch, and check him out. I think he streams at various times. Lastly, Boat, it's our good friend, the Flaxter. Jack Flack is back, brother. And this time, he plays a game that I actually had a cup of coffee with back in the day. It's called Jones in the Fast Lane. It's a DOS board game. Boat, you ever play this one?
Now, I'm familiar with Lazy Jones, probably one of the greatest games of all time.
Not the same.
Does it have anything to do? No, okay.
I will say, this is a pretty neat game. This is one of those games that came out right at that time where the CD was starting to kick in. It's got digitized audio and maybe some clips. and maybe some like loose digit stuff. But it's sort of a board game you play. I remember having a cup of coffee with this way back in the day, and I hadn't thought about it for a long time. But Flack, he's got his hand on the pulse of things, and so he pulled this one out of obscurity and had a good run of it here on the show. So please check out Sprite Castle Plays Jones in the Fast Lane, his stream, and also of course Rob Flack O'Hara has a weekly stream every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. Please go to Twitch, and it's Rob O'Hara is his Twitch channel name. I think that's all we've got, Boaster, via the media.
All right. Well, Aaron, if we turn back the clock to this time last week, we had a little thing I like to call the Patreon Song Challenge. And the last week's song, we went back to the 60s, from the 1989, the final album of Simon and Garfunkel, Bridge Over Troubled Water, The Boxer. I didn't know that Waylon Jennings did a cover of The Boxer. Were you aware of that?
I learned something over the years. It's that country acts have done covers of almost every other actual song. So yeah, I'm not surprised.
That's true.
And Waylon Jennings, a repeat offender. He's covered a bunch of wacky stuff.
So Buck Owens let me know that when he was the first to chime in with the correct answer. Mitsuyama also got it correct. Barkbit and Edvin Hellid. Congratulations
Well done, boys.
to our Patreon song champions. So if you would like to submit a correct response or an incorrect response to this week's Patreon Song Challenge, please send me an email at john@amigospodcast.com. I will read you as a winner of the challenge next week. If you're in the chat, don't write it in the chat. Write me an email. Keep it fun for everyone.
Get famous, brother.
That's right. So, here we go. Daniel James Mashby Explore Invade Robot Doctor Billy Robert David Howard Jazz Dog on type of bone face blue hands Chris Edwards Pestle Alarm Albert Kemp. We like what we like, Mr. Chip Peter Price, Herman V. Wanderley Chesum, Mark Richardson, David Hearn, Ram OK, David Terrace, Drew Carlos, Matthew Mobius, The Phantom Magnus, Seth Yates, Alistair Fiend, David Z. George Rosinski, The Amiga Show, Nan Crabtree, Superstar Cake, Chris Loomis, William Vincisca, Heavy System Zeke, Frag Lord, Mike Bolland, Olaf Hope, Alien Breeder, Dave Lost Raptor, Cowboy Boy, Daniel Williams, Hudson, Bomb the Bass, Frodo in Hell, Solar Sizer, Tech Major Gun, Miss Cola, Bernard Lucas, Jerry Dennington, Zorg Love Reflection, Simon Lesh, Captain Crispy, Kilobytes and Caffeine, Gary Heather, Free Lunch, Kate Fox, David Pickford, Cameron Armstrong, Andy Jones, Lobster Minator, 10-minute Amiga Retrocast, Bernard Quinn, RMC, Tim Drew, Joseph Harrison, Khaled, Rob O'Hara, Matthew Larimore, Andy Craig, Shanzo, Bachbit, Roland Burke, Andrew Monk, Joseph Zombie, Leaf Kelland, Alan Kebab, Chico Deliver Lord, John Marshall, Matthew Perron, Creepy Dead Boy, Figure C, T the Slow, Nora Stefan, Sword God Mortensen, Evan Helen, Christopher Hassel, Burner Now, Chris Foles, Lauren Giroux, Graham Debke, Adam Battersby, O'Brien's Retro and Vintage, Wow. Gary Hucker, Paul Harrington, Duncan Styles, Taste from the Crib, Josh, Nan, Adam Bradley, Jonas Rulo, THC, Eric Nelson, Daniel Bingston, Darren Coles, Jason Walls, Pixels at Dawn, and Kjolbjorn Barman.
Oh man, when you want a little loving, you put the Barry White on, right?
Mhm.
Right. If you want complete abstinence, then you put on John Bodekar. There will be no hanky panky with this record playing. I assure you, horrible.
All right. Now, of course, we can't go without mentioning the fine folks that watch us live on Twitch on Fridays at 5. We want to thank our subscribers, Real Retro Dude, Retro Jerry, Great Owl G, Luminate08, Hayward Heel, Negsol, Brother Bill, Jigglebox, Beach Bum 7, Explorer, Brock 101, Still Adolescing, Dub Project, Rob O'Hara, Texas Foosballer, Picard 2010, Paco Take, John Marshall 3, TSI Matt, Amiga Live, Harl the Spinny 108, Petzl KZ9 Zap, Pints and Amiga, Blue Train, Oil of Hope, Da, Krabs MTG, Amy Steph, Christian Russell, M. Cron, Back to 8-Bit with Hermsky, Steve Burtz, Buck Owens, Mr. Rocket, Uber Scuba Diver, Mitsuyama, Mash Pie, Thurso Bard, RetroRewind.ca, and Eeyore4077.
Very good. But hey, before we move on, I want to jump in here real quick because I always forget this. We didn't announce it at the top of the show, but we'll announce it now. International Computer Club. It's coming up, Boat. It's Saturday, October 1st. The first day of October. We're gonna be getting it on. International Computer Club sign-up sheets are up in our Discord. We've already got a bumper crop of incredibly hot action ready to go, Boat. We're gonna have videos, live presentations, dancing, singing, the whole 9 yards.
Wait, man.
Oh,
I've never been so excited.
Oh man, it's gonna be double up, man. You better buy 2 bottles for that one. But we got room. Don't think that we're full up, brother. We got room for your project. Are you working on something so zany, so incredible? No one's going to buy it. You've got to present it. That's what we're here for. Head on over to the Discord, International Computer Club, and sign up on our sign-up sheet pinned to the top. If you're not a member of our Discord, you're not barred. You're not banned. We're cool. We're down with the clown. Drop me a note at argpresents@mail.com, and I will hook you up, brother. We're going to kick this thing off. I think we're going to kick this off at 6, Boat. October 1st at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll get all our good buddies in Europe out of the way early, let them get in so they can get to bed, and then we'll kick off with the late risers like your David Z's and whatnot. So that's October 1st. Please tune in and participate. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, Aaron, what do we got coming up next week?
Find out. Oh. Oh boy. Looks like Paradroid 90, Boat.
Yeah. So Houston, they are. I always think about that Tower Toppler game, the Nebulous.
Houston, we have a problem.
And yeah. So this is one of the most highly regarded releases on the Amiga, bar none. People go on and on about this game. They go on and on about Paradroid.
I know. That's what scares me.
We played the isometric Paradroid on the ZX Spectrum. I believe that was called Spin Dizzy. Yeah, this will be a fun one.
We didn't do so good.
No,
this is a well-regarded one, but you're right. So we got to be on our best behavior.
I'm looking forward to diving into it, man.
Oh yeah, man.
Thank you all so much for joining us. As always, we will return next Friday for more Amiga madness. Until then,
adios.